Good afternoon. We're coming to you from the wonderful campus of the University of St. Thomas in the heart of Houston, your Catholic Urban University, for a dialogue series entitled, For Such a Time as This, Houston 2036. Houston, the name Houston, by the way, remember, embedded in the name of Houston are the letters UST. UST, as in the University of St. Thomas. So we truly are coming to you from the heart of Houston. We will examine each week the current issues of our day through a very important lens and frame of Catholic social teaching, social justice. We will dialogue with one of our guests each week concerning the number one question, the number one aspirational question in front of us going forward. What is the moral, ethical question that we must ask? And that is, what is the fair and moral, ethical treatment of all human beings? All human beings' lives matter. All human beings' lives matter. And so we're really going to look at that from different angles. I'm so happy and proud this week to have as our guest, and for such a time as this, a gentleman who exemplifies all that I just said previously about what it means to be looking at this through Catholic social teaching, through the lens of Catholic social justice, and particularly from the lens of a Catholic urban university. He is a graduate of the University of St. Thomas, 1981 graduate. He is part of the wonderful labor movement in this country, the unions, who is the backbone of this country, the backbone of America, has always been there to look out for and protect the rights of workers. And I'm just so happy to have my good friend Lacy Wolf, who is the president of the Texas Gulf Coast Area Labor Federation, AFL-CIO, the wonderful 6 letters we all know so well and grew up with. And he is here with us today to kind of talk about his work, his journey, as a Catholic in the labor movement, his journey and understanding of how the things that we talk about as Catholics really as part of the labor movement and part of the unions from the beginning. That's why there's been such a great long-standing relationship between the church and the unions over the years. So I could go on and on and on, but I'm just going to stop there and welcome Lacy to the show and say good afternoon. And so glad to have you join us, Lacy.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Larry. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this and the work that you do to the union, but also as a prerequisite that I said very clearly, you are a 1981 graduate, University of St. Thomas. You might want to start and tell us about that experience, because I've told them about my experience on campus back then, and I'm a 1972 graduate, so we're not that far apart, even though it may seem so. So I'll just let you kind of have a little time there to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. Definitely. Thank you very much. No, I was probably very similar to you, Larry. I had aspirations of joining the seminary at one time, but my lovely wife put a stop to that. Definitely didn't.
As they have a way of doing, yes.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And actually just really enjoyed, I mean, the camaraderie, the social events, the things. I was never tall enough like you to play basketball. I enjoyed it. I tried, but it was definitely a shortcoming of mine. Much as, based on that, of course, the life is remarkable. St. Thomas wasn't the only place that I attended. It was also had different studies at University of Houston, even the National Labor College at one time, which was run in the George Meany Center up in Silver Springs, Maryland. Yeah, absolutely great parts. Getting to meet all the kind of people, and got into this role of work. Definitely when we had the oil turned down in the early '80s, and it really put a damper. I had to go to work. I had a family getting started, and got into the construction. There was nothing. You couldn't even hardly get a bank teller job. It was very, very tough. And just happened to get into the union based on family and that was already in it. It was even slow for them. It was being an insulator, as mechanical insulator. They were the last guys on the job. So at that time they had work, and then all of a sudden the bottom fell out of that too. But it was a place that I stayed because we were provided a lot of good opportunity for work and also for benefits for my family as far as insurance and pension. And the more you got into it, I've always had an ideology of watching I don't know where it came from, because my father wasn't in the union. My mom was a cotton picker out of Sealy, Texas. So a farmer, never really saw anything about unions, but I always had it in my heart. I remember being, as a younger person, that, unions were taking care of people, and I didn't really understand it. It was just something that's inside of you. And so it just progressed. I stayed active in my unions, doing different aspects, different parts of the job. I actually got into the police, the sheriff's department as a reserve deputy, and got to see even how their unions work. Because another union, I like to mention a union member that was also an insulator, and he ended up becoming a sergeant in the sheriff's department. Raymond Slawinski just passed away a few months ago from COVID. And so I just like to remember him. But that's kind of the background. That's the history. That's how I got into being parts of the union. And I think it's the philosophy that I see, or at least it's the core value of human belief, of human dignity that the unions bring, that we stand up for every human being and every right. It's also very much like what you see some of the other religions when they try to discredit Catholicism because of things that happen, that, well, you've got to dig down. What is the core value of Catholicism? Why do we believe in it so much? Why are we staying here in being a Catholic? And you'll never change me. I don't care. There's nobody's ever going to change how I feel about being a Catholic either.
So, yeah, I understand that, because I've talked and shared a lot. We bring our Catholic values to the work we do. We apply our Catholic values in our personal life, professional life, and our public lives. And I think it's important that people understand that we live those lives not as separate buckets, but the same values and principles that we carry to one, we carry to the other, and they work interchangeably. I think it's important in today's context, because the work that we're all called to do around social and economic justice, and unions that hold their whole motto and slogan and goal, a better life for working people, has been the thing that has kept things, I think, from falling and sliding so far down, because you had a union there to protect those rights, to raise those issues, to fight, to advocate, to do the legislation, to talk about the policy issues. When it seemed at time throughout history, and you can go back through history and look at this, I'm just excited about it. You know it better than I. The union sometimes was the only place that stood up, the only people that stood up and talked about the rights of the workers. And this whole idea about a minimum wage and fair wage and a living wage, it hadn't been for the unions, many times the minimum wage would still be back where it was many years ago. And the unions had a lot to do with that.
They do. They fought. They've given up their lives. I don't understand how we get so much. I mean, I do understand. Here again, the fringes sometimes, even of the union, can be people that have let greed enter their lives, and they've taken advantage of what they're being given. But that's in any, the main core value is to take care of every individual worker and make them whole as much as we can. And how you would object to that, how you would want to go back to things around the turn of the century during the Industrial Revolution, when they were being persecuted and the police were called in to subdue people, just almost like today, asking for their rights, asking for dignity. They just wanted dignity.
Yeah.
And how you would be opposed to anything like that, I don't understand.
Well, it's interesting times. When you go back and look at the history. My father was a union person, and he had an interest. Well, put it this way: he was a union person as much as they would let him be a union person back then. That's a whole nother story for another day. But I remember him telling me the story once that a Klan member came to him and approached him and said, "Look, you got to go. You're black. You're a Catholic." And you believe in unions, and I'm a little guy. I'm only 6'6". My father's about 6'7". So this big black guy standing up for those three principles that are all so interwoven, interconnected, interrelated of being a black, well, not even black person back then, we were Negroes. But being a Negro fighting the battles he was fighting, being a Roman Catholic in a town that did very few Roman Catholics, alone black Roman Catholics, and being part of a union or being associated with a union, three scratch, buddy, you are out. Because we don't like any one of those. The claim was very clear. They did not like unions. They did not like Catholics. They did not like black. And you're all three, so you got to go. And so what happens, I think, over those years is that you see the union movement at its height in America when it was the strongest. It really protected lots of things. It was always involved in race relations. It was always involved in helping all people. They stopped drawing the line early between black and white and da. If you were a worker, I remember my father telling me this, the only label the union cared about if you were a worker. Did you work? Did you put the time in? Did you punch the card? Did you show up on time? Did you do what you were asked to do? They owe you this money, this fair labor. They owe you this money. Simple as that, right?
Absolutely. That was, you're right, Larry. I mean, that's and if you're not in a union, you're a single person. You're one voice out there, just like he might have been standing up to the Klan. And it's a lot harder when they come after you singularly.
Exactly.
It's hard to survive that. And as a union, you're more than just one voice. You're many into one, and that's how you're able to stand up and to fight for what you're getting. That's fair. I don't really believe that any union goes beyond what they need, what they believe that there is a fair value just to have a decent living wage, that they can survive. 40 hours a week was based on being able, the man could go to work, he could come home and spend time with his family. Right. Time and a half for Saturday. And we still have in my union, the mechanical insulator, we still have double time on Sunday, which the contractors or every negotiation sit down and ask me to give up double time on Sunday. Said the only reason we have double time is because we are based on Judeo-Christian ethics, that if our men want to stay home, they can stay home and they can go to church. They can spend time with their family. They do whatever they can. And if you need them that bad, then it's going to cost you to use them on Sunday. But as it should. Absolutely. And then that's what we fight. And the weekends and even the 7 to 3, the 8-hour work day, when everything else should be time and a half after that, so they can get home and spend quality time with their family. That's what we believe in.
You know, my touches with the union are over the years, and I've been in 3 basic buckets. Through the Philip Randolph Institute, I've done some work with them and know them well. Through the NEA, the National Education Association as a teacher, and through the CBTU, which is a coalition of Black trade unions. So those have been kind of my 3 touch points at different times in my life as an adult involved with the union. And each one of those speaks exactly to what you said. The power of being able to fight the battles, not only from collective bargaining, et cetera, but by having the power of the group, the association, the organization behind you, and not fighting that battle alone as the individual person, individual citizen, because that doesn't work. And so coming together with that strength of voices together, that strength of power together behind you, to be able to negotiate, to be able to talk about legislation, to be able to talk about, these are your voters, by the way. See this mass of people standing behind me as I'm just a spokesperson behind me, has made a difference. And I think in some legislations around human beings being treated differently and treated equal, that's the only thing that has made the difference.
It has. I agree. I mean, and we need, and we're reaching out now. I just went to a breakfast this morning in Galveston County, where we met with the Black pastors of Galveston County, in which we have not had a strong relationship with them probably for maybe over a decade, which we did. They helped push anything that we asked for, legislation. They backed us on, because there are so many plants and refineries down in the Texas City area, about gaining certain benefits from these refineries and whatnot, and also pushing on the political scene too. And so we're getting back with them. I mean, today was a great opportunity, and they see the value of getting with us, partnering with the unions again, as well as. And I have to admit that I've had some dinners with my good friend Bishop Cahill and also with Archbishop Fiorenza, and we've talked about unions. I've always pushed them a little bit harder because I think it almost we should show them that we are. They do support unions. I don't think we get enough marketing out of the archdiocese.
I think you're right.
I'd like to see that. I would love to see them say that, yes, we are here for unions. They'll do it, but when we're sitting at dinner. So.
Well, but it fits, if you read the document of citizenship, which talks about Catholics being involved in the civic engagement piece and being and voting and registration and all that and voting. A lot of the words in the faithful citizenship document, and if you go and read some of the union documents about being involved in the civic engagement part of it, it's pretty much the same words. So somewhere along the line, there was some collaboration going forward. Well, I want to talk about something that I think is important for the listening audience to know as a resource. The AFL-CIO Commission, the thing that y'all have called the Race Commission, has a set of materials, a toolbox, a toolkit that I take it as open to everybody just for going online and clicking on. Y'all have some of the best stuff about race and race relations, about training on bias and all this stuff that I've seen. And I know that you and I talked a little bit about that because some stuff coming up maybe we can do together around that. But that's an important piece for people to know as a resource that on your website, click on the thing on the AFL-CIO Race Commission, that toolkit is wonderful.
It is. And then we're continuing. We just started a new task force ourselves, and kind of they were waiting on us to finish our report before we started this, in which we started it yesterday on racial injustice and moving forward from here and trying to embrace what we came together as a task force here in the city of Houston, what we're pushing. And that's what I said yesterday in the press conference. I know we can move forward. We can stand behind. I don't see why we can't stand behind all 104 recommendations all at once.
Right. Now, what he's teasing you about, by the way, just want you to know, I love the way he kind of led into that tease. In full disclosure, transparency, he and I are both on the mayor's task force for policing reform. And as we talk today on filming this segment of For Such a Time as This, the release of the report was done yesterday, and it is a wonderful report. We will say that because we can say that. It's true. It is 153 pages of documentation, research, best practices, everything around the country when it comes to police reform. We also have 104 recommendations that we turned in. You can find the document by going to the City of Houston's website under boards and commissions. Right now, they tell me, I just got off the phone before we started talking here on this call, you can find it almost everywhere now. On any one of the television stations, on the Chronicle website, they all have it posted. It is called the Mayor's Task Force on Policing Reform. Tell us a little bit, Lacy, about your experience of going into this, being on the task force, and your experience kind of coming out of it. Because it is an interesting story to be told.
Yeah, because did the mayor chew on me a little bit yesterday? Yes, I went into it, and my words to the Chronicle were that I thought it was going to be too heavy, too burdensome, and that we wouldn't get anything done. It would be just another task force that would grind to a halt. But we can't let that happen. I have tens of thousands of union members behind me that will be there with picket signs and bullhorns trying to move us along. So I came in with a lot of skepticism getting together. First of all, with Larry and also with Brooke, helping him, it was amazing. The way things were already originally organized and started off, still had a lot of, trying to put all the 45 different people coming together to talk on different topics, and getting together was just like, I would figure it was like herding cats. And it seemed that way too. Same thing. When there was so much information, I said, we'll never get through this. I was still talking to my union brethren that I just don't see this happening. And then it was just like a giant magnet pulling all kind of tacks from everywhere. and they were just coming together. And probably with a few weeks left, when we had a discernment meeting, going through each one of the topics and deciding if we're going to keep it or we were going to adjust it or throw it out, and it just came together. It just flowed so smoothly. It was amazing. And it was like I was telling Darnell earlier, that I felt like that it was like me going to a TED convention and being the only person in the audience, and there was 44 people up on the stage plus the extras, and they were teaching me, and I was just amazed at what happened. It was exciting, and now we're getting behind it. I'm getting my union brethren to do that, and sisters to feel the same way, so that we can move forward with racial justice here in the city.
Well, thank you for that. I want to give a shout out to a couple of Catholic institutions who helped me and helped the task force and the committees. Father Phil Lord over at St. Teresa's Catholic Church in the park, Memorial Park, who very graciously allowed us to use the facilities there. And the last meeting of the task force to vote on the recommendations as a task force was held at University of St. Thomas. So we want to thank our wonderful president, President Richard Lubick, Shannon Broussard, and the whole team there that made that possible at the University of St. Thomas. And so what it said very clearly when I talked to them, and one other one, because it fits into the same category, and that's Reverend Patrick Miller at St. Mark's Episcopal Church. What that said very clearly, when we talked to the churches about doing this, even with COVID-19, with social distancing, we really can't do it. We're really not even open. And then they thought about it and said, no, this is too important. We will figure out how to make it happen. We will provide the facilities. We'll do it with social distancing, which we did, and it all worked. But because they deemed the work that we were doing so important, even though they were not open, they were not even using their facilities for gatherings, they said, well, let's figure this out because we want to be part of this movement. And so in that spirit of social justice of all three of them, it really said very clearly that this work that we're doing for the Houstonians, for the whole city, is so important because we have an opportunity to get it right. This time we have a real chance in the post-George Floyd reality to get it right. And getting it right means to truly understand, and Lacy and I have talked about it, we're so bashful about talking social and economics. And that's why I wanted to have him on, not only with his hat on as a Catholic, but also his union hat, because organizations like the unions are not shy at all about talking about social and economic justice. We need to get everybody else comfortable with talking about the reality of that it does not exist to the extent you think it does, social justice nor economic justice. And so we have to figure out how to raise that level, that ethical discussion about human beings being treated fairly and equally. And Lacy, you said something even at the press conference that this is a moment for us all, but we got to get behind it. Moments pass if you don't get mobilized and get behind it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we do. That's why I thought it was that really didn't come from me. It came from Rick Levy, the president of the Texas AFL-CIO. That's why he wanted to get that. We had that meeting prior to the press conference so we could get started. We just let's not wait. Let's not wait on anything.
Right.
And we need to. It needs to stay fresh, and we don't put it up on the shelf and let cobwebs grow on this, metaphorically speaking.
So when you start seeing T-shirts that we're going to do through the union, when you start seeing caps on, and of course pins, because we all love pins. We grew up with these pins, slogans, and pins. You'll know it'll be coming from your local AFL-CIO. We're going to get them out there. We want everybody to wear them. We want everybody to participate. Because how does movement start? Movement starts with people seeing the idea and the moment present on people they know and trust and love. If I'm wearing a T-shirt, then somebody's going to ask me why and what that is, because I'm the spokesperson because they know and trust me. And if you say it's okay, then give me one. I want to wear it too, and you just kind of pass it on. It goes on and on and on and on. And so as you build a movement over time, the movements are organic. We know there are certain principles you have to do, but other things kind of take hold once it starts. We want to be part of a movement. And I think, again, it's as the mayor said, this is a shed moment for Houston in many ways. We can do it. He wants to do all he can, he and the city council, possible, so that we all have a city we're proud of and can live in, where justice is for everyone when it comes to law enforcement and policing. Our police chief has been very engaged in this process also, so we'll see where that goes. Lacy, let me give you a few minutes for a little closing comments. I want to ask this. In the upcoming legislative session here in Texas, starting in January, what are some of the key issues that the union is going to be focusing on and talking about? Because your legislative package that y'all advocate for every session is usually one of the best thought out and best put together around. So what are some of those key issues coming up?
Really, it's going to be dependent on November, on this election here in November, what happens there, where we have quite a few items that they always continue to get pushed, like licensing for plumbers, dues checkoffs for our prison guards, and kind of down to our teachers and whatnot, where the legislation is trying to be pushed on that men and women can't join unions and they can't be held to take the money out of their checks. So that's also the prevailing wages are being attacked. Our prevailing wage states that if a person gets on a project that is paid by tax dollars, that we are paid the fair living wage of a union man or woman. That includes non-union that might win, the construction companies that win a package. They still have to pay their people a prevailing wage, no matter what they paid them on something else. So that's always under attack. Every legislation, they come after things like that. So we that's the ones that are near and dear to our heart, and we do everything we can to fight. This last legislative session, we thought that we were going to lose a lot of it, but thank goodness we had some bipartisan support. There were quite a few Republicans that still also believe in the working people,
right?
And we're able to do things that put a halt to everything. And we won. We actually won in that type of hostile environment. So it's going to be the same. We'll see what type of environment comes after November.
In this divided world we're in now, in more ways than one, the national union on the unions, rather on the national level and the state level and local level, are very clear on how they understand the divide, and they talk about the divide more out of concern and care of the person and the human being and the worker, not so much the political realities, even though that's part of it. They always help us focus back on the worker, the lives of the families of the worker, and how they benefit or how they are being how they're being hurt and not benefit by the current situation. And I think that's an important piece for me to mention now, because as we get closer to an election day and then even a post-election reality, I think the unions are going to help in many ways pull this country back to the center. And we're going to have to figure out how to get back to the center. And I think the focus on the human being, the worker and his or her family, and providing for that family is something that no one can disagree with. That's the backbone of who we are as a nation, as a democracy, as citizens. Speak to that for a moment, if you could, please.
Everything you said is right on target, Larry. I mean, that's why you see throughout an entire year, at Memorial Day, right before Memorial Day, we have the Union Memorial Day, where we talk about the safety of construction workers, people that are just on the job every day, not just construction workers. We memorialize every year down in downtown Houston at the City Hall, and which the mayor has spoke at before, where we announce everybody that's died on the job. There should not be, we're always pushing, there should not be one accidental death caused on it. Everybody should be able to go to work and feel safe and come home. That's one thing. And we do things like that throughout the entire year. We push for, we're in politics, which is a dirty word no matter to anybody, but it's not so much for all the left and the far right and what they believe in. It's for simply the dignity and respect for all workers, for everybody who's going to work, and their protection. We are protecting them. We don't care where they come from, what background they come from, if they're working, they need to be safe and they need to be able to do the job with respect and also with the dignity of not having to work 80 hours a week just to survive. And that's what our main goal is throughout the year, and everything else just falls into place behind that.
Right. Well, you said very well, and that's a good note for me to end on. Let me just say this very clearly, that I want to thank you very much for being on the show, Lacy Wolf. This has been a great discussion, and we're going to continue it in many ways as we go forward, because we got work to do yet. We're not going anywhere on this task force. But the reason I think it's so important to raise these issues, and our wonderful President Ludwig, is very committed to this. We're going to start raising this question as the great urban university that University of Thomas is, that premier aspirational goal that I'm going to end with. What is the fair, ethical, and moral treatment of all human beings? What does that look like? What is that baseline? All human beings' lives matter. All human beings are equal. What does that really look like if we really try to develop that statement? And how do we begin to talk about it and implement it in all spheres of life? And so socially, economically, politically, in all aspects of one's life. And I think that it is a challenge for Catholic University, but it's not, because that's who we are. If a great urban Catholic university cannot address the premier ethical question, moral ethical question, then who will? And so we're going to be doing a series of these with our good friends Darnell Miller and all the wonderful staff of the University of St. Thomas to make this an ongoing dialogue, try to get at some of things in a way that's really expands the dialogue, expands the conversation, expands the gentry of how we understand these issues. So please stay with us. We have a series going here. We're going to continue this dialogue series. It is entitled For Such a Time as This, found on the University of St. Thomas website. And we're going to do it with your help and support. I have a lot of people now who've watched some of the segments we've done, and they keep saying, well, I want to be on it. So, okay, let's talk. What can you bring to the table? Is that kind of discussion. So until next week, I'm gonna get out of here as we always do. We like to say and remind you, please, to stay safe, be healthy, and until we come together again, peace, power, and love.